Tonight, Ukraine's deputy defense minister warning the main strike of the counteroffensive is, quote, still ahead. That message just hours after Ukraine said Russia is suffering maximum losses, their words, on the battlefield. It comes as Roman Trukamets, a Ukrainian sniper that we've interviewed several times here out front, is sharing new video with us of Ukrainian forces rushing a soldier to safety after he was wounded while liberating territory.
Well, this is how an evacuation goes down. Kruk, wave your hand.
I can't. It's broken.
Okay, I'll wave instead.
So it's broken, is it? You'll wave again after recovery.
Here our fellow was torn apart by an explosion.
One of ours?
Yes, that's all that's left of him.
Get him in there. Get him in. Higher. Watch his head. I'm getting out. I'm getting out now. The 300 is in the armored vehicle. Get out. Get out now. They'll take care of him. Okay, guys, let's skedaddle.
In the middle of a field, a video just showing up close, right? That's Roman's video of what happened. What it's like right now in that moment on the front lines of a war that has been going on for 16 months. Fred Pleitgen is out front tonight in Ukraine with more.
Ukrainian Su-25 attack aircraft given the go to assault Russian positions. Against all the odds, Ukraine's Air Force is still very much in the fight, pilot Alexei tells me.
Are you helping the ground forces now a lot in the south with the counteroffensive operation?
Yep. The mission's extremely dangerous, especially for frontline attack aircraft. Ukraine's aces trying to keep Russian air defenses off balance.
We lost many young pilots from our brigade. This taught us to change something, and day by day we try to fly not the same as yesterday.
While Kiev says its counteroffensive is progressing, the battles are tough and gains hard to come by. The biggest threat, Ukraine says, Russian air power. This video purporting to show a Russian combat helicopter taking out a Ukrainian vehicle. The Ukrainians say Russian interceptor aircraft, like the advanced Su-35, often stop their old MiG-29 jets from operating near the front lines. This MiG-29 pilot, who asked us to hide his face and use only his call sign Juice, tells me.
You can be like a maverick, but without a proper hardware, you can't win.
Here they go. There goes one.
The Ukrainians say they need F-16s from the U.S. and its allies to level the playing field and to fully utilize the air-launched missiles the U.S. has already given them. In between the taxing wartime missions, pilots are already learning the basics of the F-16, hoping they'll be able to fly them in the future.
We are trying to improve our English skills. We are flying simulators. So at the moment we have improvised simulators of F-16 almost on all the bases.
The pilots say for them it's a matter of life and death. The attrition rate among combat aviators extremely high. Both Alexei's squadron leader and his wingman killed in combat, he says.
When you see the explosion of your colleague by your eyes in real time, it's a shock to. It's a shocking picture, yeah. And the really big difficult in this situation, it's how to sit in aircraft again and again.
But when the call comes, they say they will be ready and back in the seat, taking the fight to the Russians.
So there you can see, Erin, the huge price that Ukrainian pilots, like so many, quite frankly, in the Ukrainian armed forces are currently paying. And despite those huge losses among Ukrainian aviators, they say that they are highly motivated, especially right now that that counter-offensive is rolling. They understand, of course, as well, that it's going to be a very tough battle. It already is, but they do believe that it can be successful. At the same time, those pilots saying again and again and again, they hope in the future they'll get their hands on those F-16s, Erin.
All right, Fred, thank you very much. Alive tonight in Kyiv. And in Russia, the so-called extremism case against top Putin critic Alexei Navalny continued today behind closed doors. The trial could mean decades more get added behind bars for the already imprisoned opposition leader. Journalists and even Navalny's own parents have been banned from attending the hearing. What you're seeing here is a video feed. It was briefly available yesterday, then they took it down. Took it down so no one could go, not even his family. And here's what Alexei Navalny's father had to say to Russia.
No shame, no conscience, no honor.
And out front with me now, Alexei Navalny's daughter, Dasha. And Dasha, I really appreciate your time. I'm glad to see you again. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. Your father having another trial, and they could add more prison time. The state-owned news agency in Russia says they closed the hearing to the public because of fears of provocations against the participants in the process. What does that even mean to you?
Thank you so much for having me first. And I think it's a bit ironic that they close it out of the fears of prosecution, considering the fact that normal Russian citizens are being prosecuted by the Russian government for simply not agreeing with them. And the judge and the prosecutor who are, doing illegal things, putting a man in prison who has done nothing wrong or nothing illegal, are afraid of prosecution.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what's happening, right? We saw the feed at first, and I know it's hard to even see that. I mean, it's grainy, right? But it's your dad, and he's gone, labor camp and solitary confinement, and his press secretary says his eyesight is worsening now due to the lighting, right? The bright lights that they subject him to in his prison cell because the guards refuse to turn them off, even at night. I know he's been experiencing back pain, but even from what you know, right, his health has been deteriorating, and they're doing that on purpose, it appears. How worried are you about his medical issues right now?
I'm, of course, incredibly worried. They are not providing any support, any medical help for him in prison. And before, we know that he's been poisoned by Novichok, and that he has had acid thrown in his eyes and his face, and they constantly wake him up during the night to physically torture him, to psychologically torture him, and I want him to get medical access immediately.
Your father, amidst all of this, right? So he's got this other trial going on, right? Which was actually a trial that confused a lot of people. It's like, what is this trial even about, right? They've already said he's going to prison for a long time. That he's trying to launch a new campaign to try to turn Russians against the war in Ukraine. Now, from everything that we understand in here, there is still incredible support among regular Russians for the war. And I know you and I have talked about that there are groups, right, that there's not, that's not true for, and you've talked about that. But overall, we still see it in surveys. So what is he doing? How is he trying to accomplish this now?
So what they're doing now is they're going to ask volunteers to call in for the service and to ask questions about the war. Those who are still on the fence of what's happening and don't necessarily understand or have questions, or even want their relatives to talk to someone to explain what's happening with the war in Russia, in Ukraine, that was started by Putin. And basically, this is, I think it's an amazing thing to start, considering the fact that my dad announced this while he's in court, being prosecuted on his own case, and he decided to announce to do something for the Russian people, for the better future of the country, and I'm incredibly proud of him.
So your father's father, your grandfather, we heard him there, right? He said Russia has no shame, no conscience, no honor. I know that it's been more than a year since your dad has seen his own parents. How would you describe what Putin is doing, what Russia is doing right now, just on the personal level, to your father, to your family?
I can talk about this for hours. I'm just, it's not even about my family. It's about, I'm sad and disappointed and angry that he's doing this to people who haven't done anything to him, to normal Russian citizens, to ordinary Ukrainian citizens. He's killing people. He's threatening people. He's asking people to move out of different countries, and I want him to stop. And I want his government to stop what they're doing, surrender, and stop this horrifying war.
All right. Well, Dasha, I'm glad to see you again. One of these times, I hope it will be under very different circumstances. But thank you so much for sharing this and making sure everyone knows what's happening to your father.
Thank you for having me.